Moshiach himself is called a Mitsrayim. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, tonight's shir is going to be on the subject Shaila that Mefarshim speak about, and that is whether La'asad Labai. Moshiach is coming very soon. When Moshiach comes, we'll still have the mitzvah of Zechiras Yetsiyas Mitsrayim every day. One of the mitzvahs that we have and we fulfill every single day is to remember Yetsiyas Mitsrayim. There's a mitzvah on Pesach. I'm speaking about this because we're coming to Chodesh Nisan, Pesach. There's a mitzvah Leil HaSeder, Leil Tezvav, to say the story of Yetsiyas Mitsrayim, but then there's a mitzvah every day to remember Yetsiyas Mitsrayim. Will that mitzvah be applicable to Asad Lavi as well?
But the Agada answers it.
Okay, so seemingly, let's go through this. We'll go through this step by step. So you say the Agada answers it. Where does the Agada answer it? In the Agada, you have a Mishnah. It's the last Mishnah of the first Perek of Masechta Brachos, a Mishnah that everybody knows, where the Mishnah says regarding the pasuk that tells us about mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim every day. What does the pasuk say? Laman tiskar yemtzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha. What do we learn out from kol yemei chayecha? So there's two opinions. So the first opinion that says there is kol yemei chayecha ben Zayma says l'rabis haleilos. It's going to include that you have to say Yetzias Mitzrayim in the morning and also at night. But the Chachamim disagree. The Chachamim say kol yemei chayecha is coming to teach us that you'll be saying and mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim even the Ma'aseh Moshiach. L'havi li Ma'aseh Moshiach. Right? Okay. And everyone knows this. We say this in the Agada. So it seems to be right over here. Clear machlokes between Ben Zayma and the Chachamim. What's the story about whether we're going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, L'asad Lavai? If you take a look into the Gemara, in the end of Brachos, what does it say there in the Gemara? There's a whole discussion there in the Gemara whole conversation between Chachamim and Ben Zayma about this. Ben Zayma tells the Chachamim, how could you say that when Moshiach comes, we're going to be mentioning all these things about Yetzias Mitzrayim when there's a clear pasuk in Yecheskel where the pasuk says, Hine yomim boim v'lo yomru chai Hashem ashahelas b'nei Yisrael meretz Mitzrayim. We're not going to mention and thank the Eibishter for taking us out of Mitzrayim. Rather, we're going to say, Chai Hashem ashahelas b'nei Yisrael mikol ha'aratzos. The Eibishter brought us to Eretz Yisrael from this galus that we're in now. It's a clear pasuk. So how could you argue about this? And Chachamim answer him, you're reading the pasuk wrong. Pasuk is not saying that we're going to ignore the pastness of Yetzias Mitzrayim. What the pasuk is saying is, in addition to mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim, we'll also mention the nest that happens L'asad Lavai, and Yetzias Mitzrayim is going to be tafel, Lagabi, the much greater miracle that we're going to mention, which is the fact that David is taking us out of this galus, which will be with much greater miracles. That's the discussion in the Gemara. So from the Gemara, it seems to be a clear machlokes regarding whether we're going to mention the union of Yetzias Mitzrayim, L'asad Lavai. No, so what's the halacha? What do we paskin like? Do we paskin like Ben Zayma, or do we paskin like the Chachamim?
We'll see when Moshiach comes.
Yeah, right.
So let's look what the Rambam says today. We don't have to wait until then. We can take out a Rambam and take a look what the Rambam says. So the Rambam in Hilchos Kriya Shema seems to paskin like Ben Zayma, because the Rambam says, like we know, the mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim is morning at night. That's the opinion of Ben Zayma. According to the Chachamim, the word kol is not teaching me to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim at night. It's only once by day. So the Rambam seems to paskin like Ben Zayma. If so, according to the Rambam, that would mean that L'asad Lavai, there's no drasha to teach us that we're going to mention anything about Yetzias Mitzrayim when Moshiach comes. So it seems. What does that really mean? When do we fulfill this mitzvah rather, of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim every day? That's the reason why we say a third parsha in Kriya Shema. The third parsha of Tzitzis. What's the reason why we say the parsha of Tzitzis in Kriya Shema? By day and by night. And by night, there's no mitzvah of Tzitzis b'chlal. So why do we mention it by day and by night? Because of the conclusion of the parsha. Ani Hashem Elokeichem asher tzesi eschem eretz Mitzrayim li'is lachem lelekim. It's that pasuk about Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is the reason we mention it. And we include the third parsha of Kriya Shema in morning and at night, because we paskin like Ben Zayma, that you have to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim at morning and at night. So it practically, what l'chayda this means is, that when Mashiach comes, the parsha of Kriya Shema will be cut down to two parshas. The third parsha you won't have to say, because it's not no need to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, L'asad Lavai. That's what the halacha seems to be according to the Rambam. Paskin is like Benzema. However, it's not so pashut. Why not? Because the Rebbe, the Haggadah on this Inyan brings that there's a big discussion in Mefarshim how to understand the opinion of the Chachamim. When the Chachamim say Kol is coming to be Marbe Yemais Moshiach, what are Chachamim saying? Are Chachamim arguing on Benzema, or are Chachamim adding to Benzema? The simple pshat would seem to be that they're arguing on Benzema. But perhaps many Mefarshim say they're not arguing on Benzema. Chachamim are saying, in addition to the fact that you have to mention it at night, like Benzema said, you also learn from Kol Yemei Chayecha to say that you mentioned it L'Asadavai. So therefore, if that's the pshat of what Chachamim are saying, when the Rambam tells us that you have to mention Yetsiyas Mitsrayim by Yom U'Balayla, there's no raya that he's paskening like Benzema. Maybe he's paskening like the Chachamim. And the Chachamim's opinion is also that you mention it day and night. Elamai, they add as well that you're going to mention it L'Asad Lavai. How would we understand this? The point over here is, what's really their machlokes? There's an extra word here, kol. On Tisker, Sim Tzeischa, Meres Mitzrayim, kol Yemei Chayecha. It could have said Yemei Chayecha. It adds that extra word kol. Seemingly, they're arguing about this extra word. What do we do with the extra word of kol? If I learn from kol to be marbe the night, so then I can't learn from kol to be marbe Yemei Mashiach. It's either or. How could you say that Chacham are coming to add on the opinion of Benzema that you marbe two things, both night and L'Asad Lavai? How could you even say such a pshat? So the pshat is as follows. The Mefarshim explain that it depends how you look at what the interpretations of the word kol. And you find this in the Gemara in a few places. Kol could either mean the whole day. You should mention it the whole entire day. Or let's say kol in Yiddish, it would be the ganze Tag. It includes the entire day, which is a 24-hour period, day and night. Or kol does not mean the entire day. Kol means every. Jeden, jeder Tag. In Yiddish, it's either the ganze Tag or jeder Tag. Or in English, it's either the whole day. This is a mitzvah to be done the whole day, morning and night, or every day of all future generations. So if that's the machlokes, it's simply a machlokes about how to translate the word, then the machlokes between Benzema and the Chachamim, you can't say the Chachamim are adding to what Benzema says. Benzema says the pshat of the word kol means the entire day, morning and night. Chachamim say no, the meaning of the word kol is not the entire day. It means every day, including all future generations, even when Moshiach comes. So then there's a machlokes here. But there's another pshat in this machlokes of Benzema and the Chachamim. They're not arguing about how to translate the word kol. What they're arguing about is Benzema says you learn day and night from the word kol. Chachamim come and tell Benzema to tell me that the mitzvah applies day and night. I don't need a drasha of kol. That's what yomim means. Yemei chayacha means all the days of your life. Yemei means a 24-hour period. It includes day and night. I don't need the word kol to tell me that. I understand that without the drasha. If I know without the drasha, so then the word kol teaches me for Yemei Mashiach. So therefore the Chacham are adding and saying that you can learn out both. The fact that it's day and night, that you don't need a drasha for. You only need the drasha to tell me that you're going to do the mitzvah even L'Asad Lavai. So then they're coming to add. So that means that even L'Asad Lavai, this mitzvah will apply. Okay, so now let's go one step further. Still not so pashut. Okay, so here there's a famous question that many ask. Tzemach Tzedek brings this question also in Sefer HaMitzvahs and Derech Mitzvah. The Rambam does not count this mitzvah as one of the mitzvahs. In the Sefer HaMitzvahs, which all the children are celebrating today, the Chidon, or this is Chidon week, this week, next week. Okay, today. So,
Tomorrow.
So a trivia question about the Rambam, Sefer HaMitzvahs, which mitzvah is the mitzvah of remembering Yetsiyas Mitsrayim every day? Answer is, it's not one of the mitzvahs that the Rambam counts. It's a huge pella. It's a Fedish pasuk. It's a whole Mishnah. It's clear that it's a mitzvah that you have to mention Yetsiyas Mitsrayim every day. It's the third parsha of Shema. And the Rambam doesn't count it as one of the mitzvahs. Why not? This is a big question. The Rebbe spoke about this question also in the Fabrengen of Yud Aleph Nisan Tavshim Mem Beis, and then Behemshech Lezeh at the Fabrengen of Achron Shel Pesach Tavshim Mem Beis. The Rebbe discussed this question by Arichas. And at that Fabrengen, the Rebbe began with bringing the answer that the Welt says, B'Shem Reb Chaim Brisker. What's the answer that he said? That the Rambam paskins like Benzema. Since the Rambam says that you mention Yetsiyas Mitsrayim day and night, that seems to be Benzema's opinion, not the Chachamim's opinion. If so, that means that we're not going to be having this mitzvah when Moshiach comes. If so, he said, as the Rambam says a famous klal in Sefer HaMitzvahs, he only counts mitzvahs that is noyag es l'dairis, that is noyag that will continue in all future generations. Like for example, if you have a lot of different mitzvahs that are mentioned in Chumash, and say in Bamidbar, that were only for that generation in the Midbar. Mitzvahs that, for example, carrying the Mishkan around from one place to the other, which the Levium had the mitzvah to do. Those are not mitzvahs that are mentioned as counted as one of the 630 mitzvahs for future generations, because it was for that time period. So the mitzvah of mentioning Yetsiyas Mitsrayim every day, even though it's for thousands of years, but since there comes a certain point where that mitzvah will not apply anymore, when Moshiach comes, if you paskin like Ben Zayma, so then this is a mitzvah that's not forever. The Rambam only counts in Taryag mitzvahs, those mitzvahs that are eternal, that are la asalavi as well. But the mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitsrayim is not. That's the teretz that Rab Chaim said. Now, obviously, this teretz is only true if you accept the fact that Chachamim and Ben Zayma are arguing. That there's a real argument here. And that according to the Chachamim, it's going to be mentioned Lasad Lavai, and according to Ben Zayma, it will not.
But
so therefore,
but it solves that.
Right, that's why the Rambam, why the Rambam doesn't say this, correct?
Ben Zayma definitely holds that either way.
What again?
Ben Zayma definitely holds that.
That what? That Lasad Lavi will not be mentioned.
Yeah,
correct.
no,
That Ben Zayma definitely holds. But the question though is the Rambam. Does the Rambam paskin like Ben Zayma? Well, the Rambam doesn't say anything about Lasad Lavi. All the Rambam says is that the mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitsrayim every day is morning and night. So Rab Chaim says, from that we could assume that he's paskening like Ben Zayma, because according to the Chachamim, you don't have to mention it day and night. But that's only if the Chachamim are arguing on Ben Zayma. If Chachamim are adding to Ben Zayma, so then the Rambam could very well be paskening like the Chachamim, and you still have to mention it Lasad Lavai. Right. So again, coming back to the point I said before, the practical nafkamina.
Because he doesn't mention it that it's you're doing it for all generations.
So there's other terutzim to that question. We're going to come one second. We're going to come to that in a moment. But the practical nafkamina here, as I mentioned, is Kriya Shema. Do you have to say the third parsha of Shema? One of the things which is chiddush of the Rambam in Hilchas Kriya Shema, this is a discussion that many Rishonim talk about regarding Kriya Shema. Which section of Kriya Shema is a mitzvah min HaTorah and which part is not? Some say that only the first pasuk is a mitzvah min HaTorah. Some say the whole first parsha. Some say the second. From the Rambam, it seems that all three parshas are min HaTorah. The first parsha, it says v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veisecha, which the pashtus refers to this parsha, and it says that also in the second parsha. And then vayomer, the third parsha of Tzitzis, which is being said for Yetzias Mitsrayim, is also min HaTorah, because of this mitzvah to mention Yetzias Mitsrayim every day. So which means la'asad lava, again, the third parsha will be dropped if this is true. Okay, but the thing is, the Rebbe in the Fabrengen brought this teretz from Rab Chaim, and the Rebbe said that the Rebbe didn't accept this teretz. First of all, the Rebbe said, why would the Rambam paskin like Ben Zayma and not the Chachamim? Anytime there's an argument, a Yachid and a Rabbim, the halach is like the Rabbim. Why would the Rambam paskin like Ben Zayma that the mitzvah is to say it by day and by night and not Lasad Lavai? If Chachamim's opinion is that you say it Lasad Lavai. So that's one simple question. Another thing, then the Rebbe said, it's the lashon of the Rebbe was, it's a chiddush mavel. It's an astounding thing to say that Lasad Lavai, we're going to drop one parsha of Kriya Shema, and then it's going to change, and we're not going to say anymore. Then we're not going to have the same mitzvah to say it the way we say it today. The Rebbe did not want to accept this. So the Rebbe was not makabel this teretz at all. Okay, so then what is the answer? So what is the answer? Why did the Rambam not count it as one of the mitzvahs in the Sefer HaMitzvahs? So there's two other answers to this question. One answer to this question, the Rebbe said at that Fabrengen, or actually also at the Achron Shal Pesach Fabrengen, the Rebbe said one answer, and then there's another place in Likutei Sichos where the Rebbe says another answer. So the answer the Rebbe said by the Fabrengen is that the Rambam's opinion was that the mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim every day is already included in the mitzvah of saying Shema every day. The mitzvah to say the Shema every day, which is a mitzvah min HaTorah, the mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim is part of that mitzvah. Why is it part of that mitzvah? What's the connection between the two things? What's the teichen of the mitzvah of Kriya Shema? We know the halacha by Kriya Shema is, even if someone is not mechaven at all in Kriya Shema, you're going to be yaitze as long as you were mechaven in the first pasuk. You must be mechavan in the first pasuk, and the main kavana of the first pasuk of Kriya Shema is what? Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shemayim. That we accept the Eibishter as our God, and Echad, the Aleph, the Ches, and the Dalet. But the point basically is Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shemayim. That's the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. If so, the Rebbe says, the mitzvah of Yetsiyas Mitsrayim, remembering Yetsiyas Mitsrayim, fits into the same category. It fits into the same inyan. Why? What's the teichen inyan of mentioning Yetsiyas Mitsrayim every day? Why do we mention? What's the concept of mentioning Yetsiyas Mitsrayim every day? There's a few different reasons that it's explained already in Rishonim, but one of the reasons that it explains is because that's what explains us why we should accept the yoke of the Eibishter to be our God. Just like by Matan Torah it says, Anochi Avai Elekecha. Why? Asher etzisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. The same thing over here. If you look into the parsha that we say every day, at the end of the third parsha, Ani Hashem Elekecha Asher etzisi eschem me'eretz Mitzrayim. What does it say right afterwards? Li eslachem le'lekim. So the only reason we mention Yetsiyas Mitzrayim every day is connected to the Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim of Kriya Shema. And that's the reason why it was instituted to say it as a third parsha following Kriya Shema. It's not just a convenient place to put in another parsha because you're already saying two, so say a third and do another mitzvah while you're at it. It's a hemshich, it's the same teichen, it's one inyan. The Alter Rebbe actually in Tanya, Perek Mem Zayin, that's Tanya Perek Mem Zayin. The Alter Rebbe talks about this concept that the inyan of Yetzias Mitsrayim that we mention every day is connected to Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim. So therefore, the Rebbe said it's included in the mitzvah of Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim. The mitzvah of Kriya Shema is incomplete if you don't mention Yetzias Mitsrayim. If you don't mention Yetzias Mitsrayim, so yeah, the Eibishter is Avaya Echad, but what does it have to do with me? Why does that obligate me for anything? How do I come into the picture? Unless you mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, so then there's no ani avai lekeichem, that I'm your God. There's nothing to do with us. So therefore, the whole Yetzias Mitzrayim is part of the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. That's one answer the Rebbe said. Another answer the Rebbe said in a different place. This is in L'chut Sichos in Chelik Chav Beis Parshas Bahar. So there the Rebbe says an interesting thing. So as I started off, there's the mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim, that is every single day, the mitzvah that we have, and then there's the mitzvah by the Leil HaSeder, by Pesach, Tes Vav Nisan. Also, one of the main mitzvahs of the night is Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. Right? So really, in a way, they're a very similar mitzvah. What's the difference between the mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim every day and Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim by the Leil HaSeder? So the basic. There's a lot of the Rebbe speaks about this also in the Haggadah to explain the difference between them. Over there, the Rebbe brings a list of 5 or 6 differences. But the basic point is that by Leil HaSeder, the mitzvah is to tell a story. To tell a story, ba'arichis, like it says in the Haggadah, kol amar b'lisapa reizem meshubach. It's not just to mention it, to remember it, but it's to say the whole story. And according to some opinions, that's to be said as a question and as an answer, to get involved in the whole inyan. On the other hand, every day, you don't do it with that full involvement and with the full arichis. It's just to mention it, to remind you the basic thing that the Eibusha took us out of Mitzrayim. So therefore, the Rebbe says, you find many times, the Rebbe brings a few examples for this, that you have mitzvahs in the Torah that could be done with a certain shleimus, and then that very same mitzvah could be done in another situation, not with the same shleimus. Therefore, the Rebbe says over here, there's one mitzvah. And that's the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim by the Leil HaSeder. That's the mitzvah that Rambam does count. Included in that mitzvah and as an offshoot of that mitzvah is the mitzvah to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim every single day. It's connected to that. It goes, the Elamite, there's the mitzvah once a year, which is done with its full shleimus. And when you do that mitzvah with its full shleimus once a year, now from there, and now based on that, you take the koyach from Pesach, from the Leil HaSeder, to then tell the story every single day. There's an interesting thing that the Rebbe says in a ha'ara of a letter somewhere, one of the Mechtavim Kololium. So we all know that the famous Mishnah that says, B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam liris es atzmai ki'ilu hu yatzam mitzrayim. Every generation, a person should see himself as if he left Mitzrayim. And then the Alter Rebbe in Tanya adds to the words, B'chol dor v'dor, B'chol yoim v'yoim, every single day. So the Rebbe in a letter says, where did the Alter Rebbe take this from? How does the Alter Rebbe know to add the words B'chol Yom V'Yom? In the Mishnah it says B'chol Dor V'Dor. And it's a chiddush because the fact that a person has to see himself as if he left Mitzrayim, maybe that's only by the Seder. When you have to sit there, Seder, you have to drink Dalit Kaisis, you have to eat matzah, matter, then you have to envision yourself as if you left Mitzrayim. But every day, maybe the mitzvah is just to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that's all. The whole envisioning and mamish as if you left Mitzrayim, maybe that doesn't apply every day. The Alter Rebbe says, B'chol Yom V'Yom. Where did he take it from? The Rebbe says, the way the Alter Rebbe understood this is You have a Mishnah in Masechta Brachos that says the mitzvah of remembering Yetsiyas Mitsrayim every day. The Mishnah I began with. That's the Mishnah in Masechta Brachos. Then you have a Mishnah in Masechta Pesachim which says B'chol der v'der chayav adam l'ris esatzmai. The Alter Rebbe learned these two mitzvahs, these two Mishnahs that is, are connected to one another. The Mishnah in Masechta Pesachim came to clarify the pshat of the Mishnah in Masechta Brachos. This that it says in the Mishnah Masechta Brachos to mention Yetzias Mitsrayim every day comes the Mishnah Masechta Pesachim, and on that says B'chol der v'der. So the taich of B'chol der v'der means B'chol yom v'yom. It's a hesber on that Mishnah. Azayt Alter Rebbe verstanden. So what does that really mean? That even though l'chayda the scene of B'chol der v'der with its fullest involvement is done dafka by the Leila Seder, that the Dalit Kais is the matzah and the matter, and then there's seva and everything else that you do to mamish relive it. But nevertheless, you have to take that into every day as well. So therefore, the main mitzvah, the Rambam counts the shayrish, the mocker, which is the mitzvah of Sipri Yetzias Mitsrayim. But what's done every day, that the Rambam doesn't count. That was the teretz that the Rebbe gave. Which means, the bottom line is that even l'asad lavai, we will be mentioning Yetzias Mitsrayim. Because the Rambam doesn't ever count it as a mitzvah. It's not because l'asad lavai won't be remembered. It will be remembered l'asad lavai. There's other reasons why the Rambam doesn't count it. Either he doesn't count it because it's part of the mitzvah of Kriyas Shema, or he doesn't count it because it's part of the mitzvah of Leila Seder, of Leil Tezvav. Okay, just to finish off with one more point, and that is a beautiful point that the Rashba says, the Negeya 2, mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim every single day, and what's going to be l'asad lavai. So the Rashba actually says that according to Ben Zayme, you will not be mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim l'asad lavai. And the Rashba asks a question. Another question, he says, how could this be? We know that all the mitzvahs that the Eibishter gives, you can't be mevatel a mitzvah, you can't be mechadash and be mevatel a mitzvah. So how l'asad lavai is this mitzvah going to be in his battle? Just because there's going to be greater miracles? What are the Chachamim? Sorry, Ben Zayme say it. Ben Zayme says there's going to be greater miracles. So why would we mention the miracle of Yetzias Mitzrayim that pales in comparison to the greater miracles? It's a nice svara, but you can't be mevatel a mitzvah with such a kind of a svara. So the Rashba answers, Pshat is, I say, what's really the whole point of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim every day? So he says a different point. Before I said it's connected to the Kabbalah Salmach Shemayim. The Rashba says the point is that a person should always remember, in whatever situation he's in, even if he's in a galus, personal galus, whatever difficult situation he's in, the Eibishter saved you in the past, and he could save you again in the future. Mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim every day, the point is to be mechazik your amunah and betachan and the Eibishter that he could save you, no matter what situation you're in. That's why we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim every day. Says the Rashba. So if la'asad lavi, we're not going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, well, what are we going to be mentioning instead? We're going to be mentioning instead, like the pasuk says, la'asad lavi, we're going to mention that hela as b'nei Yisrael mikol ha'aratz is the nisim of la'asad lavi we'll be mentioning. So when you mention the nisim of l'asad lavai instead of the nisim of Yetzias Mitzrayim, you're not being mevatel the mitzvah. That is the mitzvah. The point of the mitzvah is lav dafka to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. The point of the mitzvah is to mention the nisim of the Eibishter to be mechazik your amunah and betachan. So that is the fulfillment of the mitzvah in the proper form, l'asad lavai, when there'll be greater miracles to mention. That's a Rashba's shot in this.
It's all put down in one sequence.
No. So it's a collection of different things.
I was asking where